13th meeting of the Grosse Ile Township Public Services Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll all start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we'll call the roll. Costick is here. Kennedy?
Here.
Schmidtke?
Present, sir.
Linda Stanko is absent tonight. Biddle?
Here.
Lenny Pedestris?
Alive and present.
David Nadeau?
Here.
All right, so we have a quorum. I'll make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second. Give it to Ray.
Been moved and supported, and are there any additions, deletions? If not, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Agenda is approved. We also have the very well-written minutes of our June meeting, and I decided they're such a good planning document, the way Derek, our township manager, listed everything. I'm going to save these minutes. Gives us a good outline what our future work is going to look like. So several pages in the minutes. So Derek, I congratulate you. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I will second them.
It's been moved and supported. Is there any comment, suggestions, changes? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next is the approval of bills, vouchers, which you'll find on pages 17 and beyond. Are there any notes, comments anybody wishes to make? I'll make a motion to approve the bills and vouchers for June and July. Is there?
Second.
Okay, who supported that? Lenny? Any comments? If not, all in favor of approval indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So the vouchers are approved. Item 7 is we have a review of a statement of revenues and expenditures. Basically, this is for our water, sewer, and our refuse fund. We normally receive and file those unless there's any questions. Are there any questions?
No, sir.
Hearing none? You have a comment?
I said no, sir.
Okay. Then we'll move on from we'll just receive and file the revenues and expenditure statement. Number 8 on our agenda is approval of the treasurer's report. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. Shows the fund balance on all our funds. And I'll make a motion to receive and approve the treasurer's report.
Second it.
Any comments? You have any comments, Mr. DPS Director? Mr. Manager?
No, I do not.
Dave, you're the treasurer. And you have any comments? No, they're all paid. Okay, all our bills are paid. That's good news. So anyway, Will made the motion to approve the treasurer's report. It's been supported. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Otherwise, it's received. Then we have public comment, and we don't have any public in the audience that I can see, except for our guest from Priority Waste. And the next item is item number 11, the wastewater treatment plant. And Ryan Walsh is our director of the plant. You can come up to the podium, Ryan, if there's anything. But I just want to indicate that at 6 o'clock this evening, several members of the commission had a tour at the wastewater plant of the progress that's being made with our major construction project. Major construction project was approved by the voters a year and a half ago. We're well underway with contract construction. It's literally a $10 million expansion at the plant. The work so far is very impressive, and I think it's supposed to be done sometime by mid-2025.
That's correct. Yep.
So with that, Ryan, you have any comments? Thank you for the tour, and I'm very impressed with the new final clarifier that we built.
Yeah, it looks nice. That new final clarifier is almost 100%. They are installing the handrails this week, and there's a retaining wall around that, so they're finishing that up. And then next on our list is the effluent flow line that it connects all three of the final clarifiers. It's being made larger, so that's our next step. It's just laying all of that pipe. And we also have an extra task that where that pipe connects into the chlorine contact chamber. There's some additional lining work that has to take place. That's an add-on with this project. So we're going to handle that, and we need a new final sampler structure because the old one would not properly connect all three final clarifiers. So that's the reasoning with that, which is why we need that. But all in all, it's moving along. In that.
Okay, well, on that subject, Phil, you were there, and Ray, you were there. Any comments you'd like to add?
No, it looks like it's well underway.
No, I'm glad to be able to see it all come together.
Ryan, anything else?
Sludge haul this year was complete. 7-1. We hauled 66 loads altogether. That's more than last year. And the reason of that is because we were left with 2 feet in one of the sludge storages last year. So that's why we have more loads that we had to haul out. And then for sludge hauling next year, we're going to haul every 6 months. So it'll be March or April, and then September or October of next year. So I actually plan on just like this fall time, I can get a price from our current hauler, and then Synagro and whoever else, and then I can have that here at one of these meetings. You know, the prices for that for next year's haul.
You would probably do it in the fall then? Maybe November?
Well, I want to start that process this fall, so then we have a contract for next. I want to haul next spring like usual, but we're going to haul spring and fall of next year, of 2025.
I think in the past, there's been a couple of ways that the township has handled that. I think previously we've contracted with, I guess would be the previous Veolia, to work with the sludge decanter and disposal company under like a contract with you, and they would be your sub to, to us, right? I think the last time we did it, we ended up bidding it. The township did, and contracted directly with the current hauler. Do you see any difference or any benefit to using the subcontractor to Veolia format, or us contracting directly with the vendor for that work?
I mean, I can ask Veolia or, but I don't really know if there's any advantage or not. Maybe I can work with C Rains on that to,
Check with Veolia and see what their thoughts are. We do have
I can ask them, yeah.
we have the bid documents from when we did it last time that we would just modify to make it 2 occurrences over a 12-month period. And so that would be easy enough to go that route if we decided to go that way. But I know it had been handled differently in the past, and I don't know if there's a benefit to that. But maybe let them know or ask them what their thoughts are on that then.
I can ask them, yeah, that's fine. Hickory Island lift station, we've had a problem with grease. And this has been kind of going on for maybe like a year or so. But this past maybe 6 months, about a month or so ago, one of our pumps was wrecked with grease. So we're actually right now currently working with Hickory Island Yacht Club to try and figure out a solution with that. How they take care of the grease there. Because that's the only lift station out of all 5 that has issues with grease.
Getting grease in the impellers?
Well, it's in the lift station, so it'll basically on the well, it looks like a whole mat of grease.
The hole just fills up with grease.
Yep, and what happens is whichever pump, the second one's in the back, so there's no flow, and it basically just sucks up the grease. And that pump, which was wrecked, we had to pull it, and then
They have a grease trap there?
yes, they do, but we've been kind of working with them on how that works, and if they have their like sanitary line clean, then does all that grease end up in our lift station? So
We've spoken with them. They've been more than willing to work with us to try to address the problem. I don't know if it's an increase in frequency and when they need to clean out the grease trap, or what, but they need to limit that stuff from coming into that pump station. It seems like it occurs when they jet their sanitary lines. So I think that they need to do whatever they need to do to keep it from getting into their sanitary lines. We need to stop it at the beginning before it ever gets there, because when they jet their lines, it ends up in our station. So, and they've been willing to do whatever they need to do to take care of that problem. They're just also researching, how best to do that. So we're in the process of trying to figure out the solution to that with them. So.
and it's improved actually. And worst case scenario, we just have to monitor that, station, and then we can have it sucked out and cleaned, by Suburban Sewer and Septic, yeah,
So you're really referring to the Grosse Yacht Club.
yeah, on Hickory Island. Yep, so,
I'm glad you're working on that with them.
yep, and that's what we're doing. The ACO work, I kind of already spoke on that earlier. So it's moving along, in that. The level 1 sludge transfer pump / lime slurry pump came in. It was a bid. It was, I guess, altogether $268,400. I believe in the capital budget there was only like $100,000 in there. So that came out, that was high.
And so I think we had around 300 and some change in the capital expense budget for this fiscal year. So we might have to adjust some of those priorities into the next fiscal year so we don't go over budget on our capital work. But you'll see a recommendation probably in our September meeting for the recommendation of the board to go ahead and authorize that contract. But it was a bit more, and part of that was because there was a decent amount of piping that was found to need to be replaced as part of that project, whereas I think when we put the quote together, we had the quote that we built into the budget, it was just the pump itself. So I think
Yep, and it also turns out where this is, it's our transfer pump that basically processes sludge at the plant. So it's all the way down on level 1, which is 5 stories in the ground. So obviously the contractor has to move that pump, all the way downstairs, with a hoist, which is hard. It's a long pump. And then on level 1 with this pump, there's a temperature and pressure sensor with the pump. So it'll, if there's an issue with that, so we actually need a special type of electrical disconnect. It's like a control panel that has to go down there, which I think that panel altogether was like $40,000, you know, and we need that with the pump. So
I had
it
heard,
is in the plan. It's just, it's, you know, it's a real small area, and it's hard to work down there.
I'd heard it was going to be a lot cheaper if we had an elevator that worked that could help out with that. Is that true? No.
Yeah. But then you'd have to buy a new elevator.
But then you have to buy an elevator. There you go.
That might not, you know. But,
Talking about the elevator.
yeah.
Elevator. Have you read your kid the book, If Give a Moose a Muffin?
Nope.
He'll want more. Get the book, it's funny. It sounds like to save money, you gotta do this and then do this and do this, same kind of thing. Kids really enjoy those books.
Okay. And my girl's probably like that.
My 20-somes enjoy them today. No, they don't.
So this piece of equipment came in 150,000 above what you thought it was going to cost.
Yeah, I think to purchase the pumps, the sludge pump was like 80 grand, and then the line pump was only like 20,000. So there's about 100 and some of just of labor. You know, that's, you know, it seems like a lot, but I don't know.
I think that the piping and the
But it's a lot.
you know,
The
because
electrical panel. Yep.
those things weren't considered when we put the budget together. Those kind of put us a little bit out of the ballpark on our original estimate. But as far as priorities go, that was your number one priority for this budget year. Is that correct?
Yeah, and the other items are still working fine, so I can just move those up till next April, because that's only 7-8 months away, so we can just move.
Yeah, I would just make a comment. The commission can just pipe in if you wish. But we have this large project, this $10 million bond we sold. If what's in the capital plan of our regular operating budget, the 300,000, is going to necessitate any excavation work or disrupt the work that's being done for the ACO project, then I would prefer if you try to get it all done so that it doesn't stand in the way, or you don't have to complete the project, the ACO, and then go dig something up again. So all I'm saying is, I think with the work you've done on the bid we got originally from Sorensen Gross and the amount of money we have, that if you believe that we should up our budget, line item operating budget, capital expenditure, and you have the funds to do it from the wastewater fund, that you just come back and say that we recommend that we proceed, and then up that budget by 150,000, then go back and have to dig something up later.
Ryan, do you recall what was left on that list for the fiscal year? And did any of it require, like the chairman had mentioned, require excavation, or was it like pump
No, it's all in the
swap-outs?
building. The SFE is the plant water system. That's on level 3 in the plant, and then there's a lime mixer that's out in the yard, so that's not going to be, you don't have to excavate. And then the channel monster for the EQ basin, that's just a rebuild, but they just have to yank that out and just rebuild it. So there's no excavating like with ACO stuff. Nope. So it's all separate.
Sounds like we spent a lot of money there, but there was a period, I'm going to guess, 20, 30 years ago, that not a lot of the equipment was replaced for a long period of time. And now we're catching up, and we have been catching up. And with the ACO work, it's major catch-up, refinement of the plant, upgrading of the plant entirely. And just don't let anything stand in the way of what we need to do. That's all I'm saying. And I think the commission would be receptive to any budget amendment you want to make.
The other part with that is Sorensen Gross had bid on the most recent project.
Yeah,
You know,
they did.
I think to your point, if we figured there'd be any kind of savings with a contractor already on site to do work that's there, that they would give us a competitive bid through the bid process.
Yep.
You know, maybe we want to take a look at that, depending upon, you know, what their expertise is. If that work is within the scope of the things they normally do, you know, it might not hurt to look at that as well.
Good point, yep. Okay, what else? Anything
All right.
else?
Nope.
Anybody have any questions of Ryan?
No, sir.
All right, Ryan, well, thank you very much for the detailed presentation. Appreciate your update.
Thanks,
Work
Ryan.
out there. Next, we have the Township Manager's report. I'm sorry, I missed the action item. The waste, okay, Dan, we're up to you. The waste hauling recommendation. And with that, and so the situation that we have that we're going to talk about now, and we have Dan Vinay with Priority Waste. And Priority Waste, as most residents know, is our refuse contractor. And it was about 5 or 6 years ago, 2019, I guess, we entered into a contract with Priority Waste, and I think we were your third client at that time. And I think you've done a very admirable job here in our community, changed our schedule, so we're only picking up refuse on Monday and Tuesdays now, and it's worked out pretty well. I know you've expanded your number of communities you're serving, probably a majority in southeast Michigan and all the way up to the Flint area. And so anyway, you've continued to give us good service. Our contract expires in November, and we have been communicating over the last few months, talking to Priority Waste, and in particular Dan Vinay. And I'm going to let Derek take over from here, but there's two issues that we are involved in tonight. One is to consider an extension of the contract for 3 additional years. And the second issue is part of that could be a new method of landfilling our waste. Whereas we've gone to the Riverview landfill for years, there's some issues I think the township manager will explain, and you've offered in your proposal to take care of landfilling the waste at a location of your choosing and not at Riverview. So there's really two issues as I look at it. And I'll turn it over to Derek.
I think the chairman gave a very good introduction and a brief summary to what's being considered tonight. As he had mentioned, our contract with Priority expires in November. So the township, over probably the past 6 months through the commission, has been looking at a variety of different options. We know we had spoken with you about proposals for extending our contract, and that's what we're considering tonight, as well as the as well as the hauling. The disposal also has been discussed, and that is because there have been some challenges with some of the verbiage in the contract with Riverview. That we're not sure that we're going to be able to overcome those challenges. So Priority has given us an option to have them handle our disposal. Those rates have been offered in the proposal tonight as well, and as you'll see, they are competitive with Riverview's proposed rates, actually a little bit more affordable than what Riverview had offered. So I believe the recommendation tonight would be to consider or recommend the extension of the contract with Priority, and also recommend the disposal with Priority of our waste. So we'll have all of those responsibilities being held by Priority Waste. The rates that have been offered here over the past, I think, 3 months or so, I think the commission has seen some rates from other bids that were received by other communities to make sure that the rates were competitive. That information was provided, and I think based upon that analysis, it will show, and that information shows that the rates that are being provided by Priority for comparison, comparable cities with comparable service structures, which is yard waste, trash, and then recycling, and also comparable community design. So distance between houses, residences, those type of things. You'll see that the rates, or you should have seen in the past that the rates were very competitive, and maybe Dan can speak to that a little bit as well. Priority has served the community well. Like any trash hauling business, you're going to have a couple hiccups there, here or there, but we've been very happy over the years with the way that Priority has responded. In addition to that, I'll be honest, and I hate to say this while you're here, but the options available in the waste hauling industry in this area are very limited. Priority has purchased, from what I understand, Republic's residential service, GFL's residential service. Waste Management isn't in this area. I don't believe they have any residential contracts in the downriver area, at least. So the reality of it is the options available to Groseal Township, should we bid this, are limited, just by the fact that there aren't that many businesses operating currently. But I feel very strongly that with the 3-year contract option, we still afford us a timeline that allows us, if the market does change, to go to bid within, a 3-year period. So that's why I would lean towards that term length. Although I know Priority would prefer a longer term, I think with the way that the market changes and the trends for new businesses jumping up, coming out of the woodwork, I think that affords us the option to be able to go to bid within a shorter period of time if those options do become available. Nothing against Priority, just, looking out for the residents and their tax dollars, how that plays into it. So with that, that's all I really have to add. The rest of the information has been included in your action item here, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to review it. The rates are in there for both disposal and hauling. So I can answer any questions, and Dan obviously can if you have any questions for Priority.
Dan, you want to speak to us about anything?
I'd love to. Thank you for having me tonight. I'll tell a quick story. So in September of 2019, we were awarded your contract. You were correct. You were our third. It was a short period after we entered the residential market. So in 2019, the township and the board yourselves took a leap of faith with Priority, and we don't look past that by any means. We appreciate that greater than I think you can understand. It was at the time about 6 months into my time with Priority. We were already in a year and a half into operation, but I came in a year late. And, from that point forward, your community, as well as the others that contracted with us early, really helped us get to where we are today, which I'll tell in a couple of moments. It took us from, a mom and pop size of a company into one of the largest residential service provider that we are today. In June of this year, Priority did purchase all of the GFL contracts, and we went through the assignments with the communities. So now we're servicing 125 communities today. That also encompasses additional state, where we have 2 other with potential of 1 more adding on here in the next hour or so. So your township trusting us with the service means a lot to me, because it was, what I was brought in here to do in previous life in my sales tenure, to help build something from nothing and grow this into something that your residents can appreciate. And when we started back in 19, we were very manual service. We were like what the others in the market at the time offered. Manual service, trash, a guy or a gal in a truck following that truck to make sure streets were complete. And a lot of those times when Derek or Donna or some other leader of the community would call us, there was no point in where we could check the work that was being completed. Fast forward to 2021, we embarked on a transition of incorporating technology as like a catalyst or a core of our foundation, putting cameras on all 4 sides, including the cab and the hopper, so we can see live audio and recorded audio of what happened as we approached, what happened during, and what happened as we left. And what that also gave us is the capability to identify GPS tracking, that one little section on a street that's commonly missed. We can fix those because we can see that it was touched on both sides, both ways, both directions. And there's still the human aspect of it, overlapping lines, or not fully identifying that small little nook of the end street not getting touched. And those, again, we take seriously and come back for when they occur. But we saw, from incorporation of technology, a greater efficiency ratio, which at the end also affects our carbon footprint, because we're this industry is generally the highest carbon footprint in the United States of what we do on the roadways. And if we're trying to be efficient and minimize that, incorporating technology really helps. So I'll wrap it up by just saying thank you very much for the decision in 2019. We're very excited to remain a partner with your community, myself included. Love what you do as a township. Your residents are I remember COVID when there were signs at the Kroger and in the lawns of thank you Priority Waste employees for coming on the service day. That obviously means a lot to me, but it means a lot to those that are in the cold, the rain, the heat, and those nice, cool, perfect 65-degree days when they're out there. So your community does mean a lot to us. We appreciate the trust you made in us in 19 and the ongoing partnership ever since.
Well, thank you. I want to just add too, if any residents are watching, when we took bids the last time in 2019 and awarded a 5-year contract, we had 3 bids basically that I recall. GFL, which was the old Rizzo company, and Waste Management. Our contractor was Waste. They doubled their price. GFL gave us a good competitive price, but Priority was a little less favorable. It was more favorable bid to our community. We took a chance, and in the process of lengthy interviews with your firm and the other firms, we asked about what kind of equipment do you have, what are the age of your trucks, so that they were operable and reliable. We also asked what your pay scales were, so make sure that you were paying people a decent wage so that both your drivers and the people on the back of the trucks were making a comparative wage with Waste Management and other firms in the business. Because as you know, and as I've seen, when men are out working on the street collecting the garbage, and sometimes they throw stuff around, and sometimes the wind blows some things around, but basically you've done a pretty good job. And those are important factors. And as Derek mentioned, when you try to compare community, a big issue is the density. How many 60-foot, 100-foot lots do you have versus large lots? Because that time and distance between pickups is a big issue that addresses your costs and our pricing. So appreciate all you've done. If you have no comment, Derek, I want to ask you, how do you want, we don't have a resolution in front of us, but we could adapt a resolution that would say something like to, your letter's not dated, Dan, so I'm going to refer to Dan's letter. We'll put a date on it that we received today, I guess, or how's that? So August 13th. I know we received it some time ago. But the residential rate structure and the solid waste, the disposal per ton are listed. So should I read those right now? Or just incorporate? There's what?
Isn't there changes in that by what I see on the last page, page 30?
I think we're working off of page
We're working off page 28.
28. Yep, that's the most recent.
No changes, right?
28's the most
The,
recent.
the other one was a prior submission.
Yeah.
And that was not a formal proposal.
Right.
I did have one quick comment prior. There's been a lot in the news about issues with the GFL transition. I don't think Groseal has experienced necessarily the type of issues that maybe previous GFL clients had that were picked up by Priority. I know that there were some issues with residents trying to get through on the call line because I think that they were swamped. But as far as any pickup issues, I don't think we necessarily experienced any of the magnitude that other communities may have. Can you speak as to why that is? Because I think you and I had that conversation about dedicated, staff and trucks. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so in April, the time frame in which our CEO and the GFL CEO were having discussions about this acquisition, March maybe, we did a fleet audit that finished at the end of April. And that fleet audit, and this will all lead into the call center more or less. The fleet audit was complete by the end of April, and then they had a formal agreement signed at the end of May for a transition at the end of June for a July 1st start. In that audit of the fleet, about 530 trucks. Some reports are 400. It just depends on what trucks you're talking through, but 500 total assets. We were supposed to take possession of. And that audit was very thorough. I trust our fleet team and the manager that has a ton of experience in the industry, that he rated these trucks. And we knew there were going to be 75 to 80 problem children, as we'll call them, ones that we may have to permanently scrap due to identified safety issues or non-repairable. They've reached the end of their life. July 1, when we took over the possession of those vehicles and we went to the yards to run our routes on that Monday, 220 or so had to be downed. 50 to 75 of them were delivered without axles. We had to go on a wild goose chase to identify where those axles were to put those on. There were a number of what I'll call is decided issues where they mixed oil into the diesel tanks. Which is a big no-no with an engine. There were some personal that, WXYZ mentioned about defecating in trucks. That's a real thing that people did on their exit. So we had to overtake and overhaul 235 trucks. You can run a normal community down, let's say 5 to 10% of your trucks. In most communities, it's 1 to 2 trucks, maybe 3 at the most if they're a very large community. You can recover at that percentage. When you're talking 47% or more down on that day, you're going to run into completion issues, completing routes. So that kicks into the call center, or what we call as our PIT, the Priority Integrated Technology Center. It's where LDCs that monitor the service on the road sit and work. On a normal workload, they can take all calls in a timely fashion. We were averaging at the point of June 28th, 20-second hold times, 3-minute call resolution times. You fast forward to when 3 or 4 weeks of not the best service with the previous service provider, not finishing routes throughout the month of June, elevated emotions from residents, which totally understand. If my trash wasn't picked up consistently for 3 or 4 weeks, I'd be upset as well. They started calling us Monday morning, 8 o'clock, and that first Monday of July, I think at 8 o'clock we had already received inbound 4,000 phone calls. So that's going to pose a little bit of a problem for everybody. And we did try to separate and keep the what we called the core priority customers at the time, legacy customers, from experiencing that pain. But what we found was an issue with the way that our phone system was routing things. So as calls were coming in, instead of them taking in the order in which they were received, it was taking them in an order in which it so chose. And we have transitioned that phone system to a new one. It's not fully integrated at this point. There's still some room to improve. We still want to get back to what we had as our priority standard, which is, again, off the phone in 5 minutes or less. So that way the resident is heard in a prompt manner, their issues are addressed immediately, and then they can resume their normal day, not interrupting their family lives or their work lives or their lunch hours whenever they're calling. So there's still some room to improve. A second component to that is having the necessary staff. Again, you start day one and you get 4 times the amount of calls that you're normally receiving on a daily basis. Again, you have to hire in, train, and then put into play that staff. So over the last 36 or 37 days, we've hired in 15 new people to run that center and answer phone calls. We didn't also want to throw people at the problem, right? If they weren't trained on a community to understand. Groseal has a service defined by the contract, but it's completely different than, let's say, the city of Detroit would be or Westland would be, and we didn't want to just have anybody pick up the phone for your residents and tell them something inaccurate that was more defined for a different community, because that's going to cause an additional call to Donna, because I know she receives a lot of them, and then Donna has to call us, and then we have to call the resident back. Now we've just prolonged the issue. So there was a process that we had to get those people in play. So this week, 15 did go live into that. We're seeing better hold times, call resolution times, as we call them, but we still have a ways to go to get it to what we wanted. So, we are at this point in time, only running 60 routes shy each day, which is much better than the 150 that we were running at the point of transition, and we're catching up. And it's tough standing in front of other townships that we have meetings with on a daily basis and nightly phone calls with supervisors at times to tell them that we're running their township with 50% of the assets that they should be, but we're getting to a much more healthy standard. But we focused our efforts to not pull from Grozeal. We did not want this township and your residents to feel as much burden as we could avoid. The phones were one thing, but the service is a whole nother bucket, and we wanted the service to be as on point as possible to avoid the phone line issue. So we did take that into consideration in the transition, that at the very least, service level at the street level from the resident's perspective should be completed daily, on time, and on schedule.
I appreciate all your comments and the fact that our service wasn't affected. When do you expect to be caught up?
I don't like putting timelines on anything because it's
Couple weeks.
I mean, the goal from our team is as fast as humanly possible, and it's all dependent on heavy equipment repairs. We sent, I want to say it was 75 to 100 trucks out of state to get repaired, because there's only so many heavy equipment repair shops in the states, especially locally in Michigan. I mean, so we sent them around to our network. Our in-house repair guys are doing what they can on the daily stuff, but on the big overhauls that needed time and a little bit of nurturing, we had to send those out to other states, because again, we had to get them done as fast as possible. People are only going to have so much patience.
Thank you. Derek? So,
That's all I have. I think your original question about the resolution, yeah, I think if you want to refer to the letter
and you'll adapt the resolution from
for the
that?
board, sure.
So if this is acceptable, I'll just make a recommendation that we approve extending the contract for priority for 3 years, from the 24-25 fiscal year to the 26-27 fiscal year, based on the rates as depicted in the picture of $17.50 for the first year per month for collection services, $18.20 the second year, and $18.93 the third year. And then include with that, as a secondary issue, that we would accept their proposal to allow them to dispose of our waste, which means we'd no longer be disposing it at Riverview. And these rates are actually cheaper than what the Riverview rates are. So for 24-25 it'd be $20 a ton, 25-26, $20.80 a ton, and the year 26-27, the fiscal year 26-27, $21.63 a ton. And so that's the resolution. Is there support?
Support.
I'll second it.
Lenny, that was you? Okay. Lenny supported. Now, with the assumption that Derek's going to put this in some good wording, are there any questions or further questions on any of the commissioner's part? Phil?
I just have one question. Didn't we, at one point, wasn't recycling separated from
Yeah, so
trash?
the rates that are proposed are the commingled rates. So they
Commingled
they
rate,
can be
okay.
separated out,
Got
but
it,
yeah,
okay.
that includes yard waste, recycling, and solid waste.
I just wanted to ask one question of Dan, because I was involved when we first came on in 2019, and the age of your trucks was a big issue and a big selling point to me personally, and I think other members of the commission. And are you still adhering to that age? I think it was most trucks would go 9 years, but you were doing 7, or it was something in that neighborhood. Are you still trying to adhere to that?
Yeah, the goal is to keep our age as young as possible. A caveat to that is in the cost of trucks now has gone up 40-50% over the previous cost, but we know that cost is a relative term as far as capital and maintenance, because they both have their own division or their own little structure, right? A new vehicle doesn't need as much maintenance as an older vehicle, and our goal is still to try and keep at that same 7-year balance. That is long. If it's 8 years, but it's still not causing constant leak or spill issues, in good general repair, not costing us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to keep it afloat, we can keep running that. But knowing that that 7 years kind of that mark where we look at it and say, okay, if it's causing pain and strife, let's replace it with the new piece and still
I
sell it
live
with
on the end
value.
of a dead-end street, and my biggest issue was with the older trucks, not the previous vendor. They back down and they go away, and I have a nice little puddle of, I mean, it seems like the first thing to go on those are the hydraulic
Yeah.
systems. So, and also the pay structure for your employees was definitely higher than the competition. Well, now there is no competition. Are you still having good pay structures?
Yeah, CDL drivers of A and B schedules are competitive in and across industries, right? So if a CDLB driver can get more money in another industry, they will chase that because it means, you know, it affects their family. So we have to keep our pay schedule at a healthy, competitive number. We still pay our guys and gals a very good wage for what they're paying. It's more than even what we talked about in 2019. At that point, I believe it was somewhere in the market of $24-ish an hour. I can tell you we have employees that are making 30%, 40% more than that per hour because that's what the industry and that position is now dictating.
I think you also offered your workers the opportunity to move up
Oh, yeah.
to become drivers, and that's still in place? Are you still adhering to that?
Yeah,
or-
one of our lead drivers that was in Groseal when we rolled this out, his name is Tyler, is actually an operational manager for our operation in Indiana now. So he moved up a couple of levels. He moved from a residential driver to territory managers, we call them. They kind of oversee a group or an area for multiple streams, the commercial and the residential, and then moved up a layer from there and moved to Indy, which is actually where his family's from. So it was a good fit. He's a big Speedway car racing fan, so it's close to Speedway. So he runs that operation fully now. And some people call that like a general manager. If you look at it, like just for understanding, he's our operational manager for that outfit. So 100%. If you're not promoting up, you're doing something wrong. That means that you're not committed to your employees. That means that you're not trying to fulfill their growing needs as families, and we're still committed to doing that. We have a lot of people that have received promotions because of hard work and that sweat equity, learning and adapting to our changing needs.
Thank you.
I have one thing to say about priority. I think, the only person on Groseal who has tops for the recycling bins. So far, priority has thrown 2 of them in the truck. And I've called out there and talked to the girl, and I talked to Mark, and nothing's been done about it. But I put the caps on there. I paid for the caps myself. I mean, it keeps the stuff dry, and it keeps it from blowing down the street. So that's my complaint.
I'll get a replacement for you. I mean, if we did it, I'll get you a replacement.
I know that's been done because we put the cap on it, and then Monday, we bring the stuff back in, there's no cap. We'll look in the big tote with the wheels. We figured they'd put them in there. They had to go in the truck.
I got a real quick one. Assuming the board chooses to approve this upon the recommendation of the DPS commission, and we decide to dispose with you the disposal of the waste at your landfill of choosing. The distance from Groseal Township to the landfill, how would that impact, or would it not impact, the schedule that you would keep with us? Would it still be the same schedule, the same length of day? Because obviously Riverview is so close to us. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, there will be no change to your day schedule. It won't impact us to a significant degree. If you do a quick Google drive distance and directions there and back, it really only adds about a half an hour total, 15 minutes more there, 15 minutes more back. So we don't see that as a significant issue for us. We know and we have a plan for it. We know when the high traffic times are to avoid and the low traffic times are to perform. So We have a normal schedule how we get things done on the roadway, and we'll just make sure that we adapt, keep that so that way your Monday and Tuesday services are not impacted.
I have a question,
Okay.
Mr. Chairman. if I
Sure.
could. The switch from Riverview to priority waste choice, are we under any obligation now with Riverview? And do we continue with Riverview until, October 1 or November 1? And then priority would take over with the disposal?
That's something I'm gonna have to speak with Dan about and figure
Okay.
out exactly how that transition will
Okay,
take place.
all right, good enough.
This is a good question, though. Derek will work it out, I guess.
I have no doubt.
Ray, questions? Lenny?
I have one comment. I appreciate you being transparent with us. That means a lot. So thank you.
You have anything else, Les?
Nope, that was the only thing. I got that off my chest.
I found your lids. They're next
We
to
had
the
such a
street
great conversation about Fraser Hockey Land earlier, and he couldn't have brought it up then? No, I'm kidding.
He softened.
Okay, so if there are no more questions, I sort of read from the letter that Dan has given to us, that you'll give to the township board, and you'll frame the resolution. And our budget, I assume we budgeted an adequate amount to cover it, because really our fiscal year doesn't start till next April, so we'll be dealing with that next budget period, right?
We did anticipate in our budget the increase in costs, so.
With all that said, appreciate you being here. If there are no other questions, I'll call the motion. It's been moved and supported that you're going to draft the resolution based on the 3-year charges that I mentioned. With that, all in favor of awarding the contract to Priority Waste, an extension of the contract for 3 more years, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimous. So thank you very much for being here, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. 9257. Roseal Parkway.
It says only Parkway.
Yeah, the sign says Parkway
By the
Drive.
way, when you're at it, he's lost 4 street signs.
But it's the second house east of Meridian with a 40-foot flagpole in the front yard. Just ask Mark. I've talked to Mark quite a few times.
You can get his
you,
information
Dan.
from Derek as well, so.
And bring him back a street sign.
Okay, with that now, we're going to move on. And the next item is the DPS Director update. We'll be right there.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. All right, so you want to give a synopsis of the DPS project update?
Yes, so ART, which is Advanced Rehabilitation Technologies, they've started our sanitary sewer cleaning and televising program. They started, I think, about 3 weeks ago. The engineer's report, because I was on vacation last week and you guys got your packets almost 2 weeks ago now at this point. Some of these are out of date, but that work has started. It actually started right around July 15th, as Ohio has mentioned here. So they've started cleaning up any remaining areas that were remaining from the previous contractor, and then after they clean that up, then they'll be heading to the north end and doing work up there. Residents will receive a notice on their door about the work being done so that they know what's going on. And if you have any issues with the cleaning that's happening, because you might get some bubbling of your toilet and those type of things, you'll know who to contact and you'll know what that's all about if you pay attention to that notice. So that is going well.
So I just mentioned that this is if anybody's watching, this is a program to clean our sanitary sewers.
Yep, and inspect them
And
and
inspect 'em.
identify any faults through the cleaning and the televising of them.
Okay.
So they clean them first, then they run a camera down it. And we completed the 5-year program last year, community-wide, and we've segmented the community into 5 different sections, and we do 1 section per year for the next 5 years. So we're starting that program over with that we just completed.
Okay.
So, Manholes and sewer rehabilitation, EPA is the one that's handling that appropriation that we received from the federal government to do work at the wastewater treatment plant and sanitary sewer system. Unfortunately, because it is a federal program or federal funds, we do have a number of hoops that we have to jump through. Raines has been assisting with completing the required regulatory actions that need to take place as a result of it being federal funds. They indicate on the report here, SHPO is one of the hoops that we have to jump through, which is a bit of a process. So they're working through that right now. Once that clearance from SHPO is received, we'll be able to bid that work and start with those projects. And that'll be, I think, north of $2.5 million worth of sewer rehab work. So the cleaning and televising identifies areas that we need to have work done. That's built into our asset management plan. And then manhole and sewer rehabilitation, that's actually the action on the asset management plan. So those work hand in hand with one another.
So I'm going to guess, this is a big project,
Big project, yes.
and you're going to be bringing the bids back to us for approval.
Correct. Once the bids are received, it's going to be lining work, manhole structure repair and lining of manhole structures, and all that works to correct faults that also contribute to inflow and infiltration into the sewer system, which increases water at the plant that isn't sanitary sewer water, which increases costs of operation and increases the risk of SSOs. So it all works as a system together. One helps the other.
Okay, very good.
Nothing really with regards to the violation notice, the HVAC lab unit, we've got the EPA stuff through the grant all resolved. That is going to be funded through that appropriation. The materials have been ordered, and that work, as Ohio mentions here, should start in September. We're waiting on delivery of material to actually start the installation there. I think we already talked a bit about the ACO work, which is this basis of design plan improvements. The chairman had mentioned earlier, we did a tour of the plant, and that work is progressing nicely. We are ahead of the Eagle mandated schedule, so we have no issue at this point of not completing before the state's required timeline. So everything is working well there. Sanitary sewer system, asset management plan. As we do we've already completed that work. It has been submitted. As we work through the televising and cleaning, we'll be updating that asset management plan as those results and that information comes through. We talked about the Lyman slurry sludge pump transfer replacement. That bid did come in. Ryan spoke about it earlier, so you guys will probably see that at your next meeting. Water asset management system or management plan, that's in progress. I want to say Ohio mentioned that was somewhere around 60% complete. And the reliability study kind of works hand in hand with that. As far as the management plan and the reliability study flow characteristics, those are kind of being worked on simultaneously. We did complete the majority of the hydro excavating of the service lines that we received that $20,000 grant for. Contractor was very good to work with. They had provided us a very competitive price. They were very efficient. So those results will be submitted to the state, and then we'll identify whether we need to do more or not. So I think we ended up doing somewhere around 50 of them, 55. So we'll bring it back to you if we have to do more than that, but we won't know until we submit that to the state. I don't have the results for you on what they found. I think we'll be able to report on that to you next month, especially with John being here because he was working directly with them. As far as paving projects, we're pretty much done for the season there. And that is all I have to report, with the exception of the second application of dust control took place in the middle of July, and the results on that were favorable. I think we had good responses from the residents about how that turned out.
Any questions on this report? Thank you. Water loss report?
Included in the packet for your review, 23.949%. John did give me the numbers on the flushing, water main breaks, and others. That took about 1.6 million gallons off the total. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge difference, but at least it's indicated on this month's report. Any questions there? If not, that concludes my report for this evening. John, is on vacation, but he did want me to recognize a seasonal employee that we have had, and he'll be going back to school. It's, I believe, is his second summer with us, Morgan Pedestris. He has done an excellent job for us this summer. He's a student at Eastern Michigan University, and will be headed back for his, I think, sophomore year.
Sophomore year, moving date is a week from Saturday.
So John wanted to publicly recognize him for the job he did for us this summer.
Very nice.
He was a big help. You know, summer is a busy time of the year for us, getting roadsides cleaned up and other maintenance items done. And finding seasonal help these days is, especially good seasonal help, is harder than you can imagine. We generally have a couple of positions that remain vacant through the summer just because we can't find qualified candidates. And Morgan has been more than qualified and done a great job for us, and we appreciate his second year of service with us.
We appreciate that, and he's in bed by 8:30 because after a day of what he does, he is exhausted and having a blast.
Good.
He loves every minute of it, so thank you for that recognition.
And I pertinently witnessed that young man working very hard too. So
Takes after his dad.
we tried to hire, we tried to hire a couple more, let's say college age students. They got to be 18 to work on a roadway. And next summer we're going to do that as well. So if anybody's listening and you have somebody that's going to be 18-year-old, they're going to be looking for a job, and I don't know what we pay, $16 or $17 an hour for a laborer. It's good work. It's in the town, in the community. You don't have to drive anywhere. And as I said, we tried to hire 3 people to assist our DPS roadside maintenance group, and we just didn't have the applicants. So we'll do that next summer as well. So with that, we have discussion items. All right, so I have a discussion item. Most of you have already saw the television last night. Those of you that witnessed the discussion, the presentation on the purchase of the toll bridge by the township. I know that you seen it, Phil, and I know that you saw it, Ray. I don't know, Lenny, did you see it? Lenny saw it, and did you see it, Les?
Yes.
So this whole commission has seen it. My own opinion is, I think that everybody involved, you, Dave, and Derek, given the constraints you have with the possible purchase, I believe you did an excellent job trying to explain what you could. I know there's a confidentiality agreement that you have to deal with, but I know that you also, as Derek explained, went out and hired an engineering experts to come in and evaluate the bridge. You hired financial experts to evaluate the finances of operating the toll bridge and all the other hurdles that you've had to go through, and it's taken better part of a year to do it. So from my perspective, even though this commission is not involved in the big bridges, we got a lot of little stuff we're going to hear later about the smaller bridges on the island, but on the roadways. But the 2 big bridges, the county bridge, the free bridge, and then the pay bridge, are issues that the township board, the elected officials, and township manager, township attorneys have dealt with over the years. Anyway, I want to start by saying it's a big issue for this community. And I know that, and I'll give you a chance to explain, Derek, one of the criticisms or requests you had from residents last night was, when are you going to tell us all the details that you can? And last night the resolution had a deadline for getting on the ballot. And as was stated, the approval that the township board did was to allow the voters to vote on it. That's the key issue. And not have to delay it for a year based on whatever the county might do to close or work on the county bridge. So at any rate, my compliments for doing as well as you could. And with that, I would say also that, Dave, you gave a good explanation about what this might cost us, and we're going to do that again this evening. And Derek, I'll throw it back in your table to just, you want to announce some dates or things that are going to happen?
And you have to pardon me, I believe the dates that were announced today were August 28th, September 16th, and October 9th. We double check. September 18th and October 9th. So August 28th, September 18th, and October 9th are the dates that we're going to have public input sessions and information meetings. Those will be at 6 o'clock in this room. If we get enough feedback where, we feel we need to change the location, if the audience is going to be too large for this venue, we'll obviously address that and try to go to a larger venue to make sure everybody can attend. But those are the scheduled dates that were announced
They'll be
today.
broadcast live over cable television,
Correct, yep.
Comcast Channel 12.
Yeah, and it'll be on our Facebook page and YouTube as well, so.
Okay.
Yep. So, and then we also will have a variety of additional information that we'll be distributing, through the different methods that we have available to us. Frequently asked questions, as much detail as we can possibly provide. We are tracking very closely, the concerns that the residents have and the questions that they would like to have answered to make sure that we can try to address all their concerns and questions as completely as possible. And we hope to be able to achieve that here in the near future through publications and then also at those meetings.
This is the last. This is for Lenny. All right, so Dave, you have on the screen what it might cost us. What's the big concern of everybody? Do you want to explain that? This is for you.
Mean options other than
There's an A and B.
you and Phil
No,
splitting the
the-
$60
you
million
can- if you want to, a big issue is, I know that it's going to be continued as a toll bridge, I think you said last night. And in addition to that, we're going to have a property tax increase, let's say. But as you pointed with this, and it's on the screen right now, as you explained it last night, would you just explain it again or give you an opportunity?
Sure.
In case anybody's watching?
Just to, summarize some of what I can. The total bond issue is for basically $60 million. That is to include, excuse me, the purchase of the bridge, the cost of upgrades necessary to bring the pay bridge up to the point where it can accommodate our waste haulers,
Trucks.
gas, food, all the things that we need, to continue and function as a community. The millage that will be levied for these bonds is about 1.6 mils for 30 years. And the bonds won't be issued all at one time. They'll be issued as required or as necessary to make the repairs that have to be done. Some people think, well, why don't we just buy the bridge and worry about the upgrades later? Well, the problem is, if we just wanted to run cars across it and we don't have upgrades in place or completed by the time the free bridge goes down or is closed for whatever period of time, then we just have a bridge that cars can go across. We can't provide the other things that are needed for this community. So to get the repairs to the level, I think right now it's 7.5 ton max.
Yeah, weight limit, right.
We want to get it up to 36, about 36 ton, which will accommodate almost everything that we get across. But in order to do that, in this comparison, this little chart just shows that Starts in 2022. The total township mills was 15.5 mills. So this doesn't include schools, doesn't include the county tax, just what goes to 2023. It went up to 15.98 mills, and that included there was yes, because there was an increase in the mills that year. In 2024, the total millage dropped to 12.91 mills. So it was a full 3 mills. 3 mills dropped off. We had that was the sanitary sewer project. And that dropped. I mean, so in 2024, the millage was reduced by a full 3 mills. In 2025, it's going up to, including the bond for the bridge project, goes up to 15.52, which is still less than it was in 2022.
Dave, this is something we dealt with when we went forward 2 years ago with our wastewater plant millage,
Right.
our proposal, and the world proposal,
Right.
is that we knew that almost 4 mills or 3.5 mills was going to drop when the sanitary sewer debt
Right.
from 22 or 24 years ago expired. So we're no longer paying that debt. And that's where you see the drop in 2024.
Right, and that drop, well, the other reason, it wasn't supposed to go off for another year. There had been some, for a couple of years, or for some period of time, the township was actually paying that off a little faster than it had to be paid off. So we were able to pay it off a year earlier. So that's why it dropped off this year instead of next year. So there was, this 1 year reprieve. And then there's another millage dropping off and a millage coming on that are already voted on. And then it levels out at 14.5 mills for 2026 into the future. So
Okay.
it's we don't need 60 million in taxes right away. I mean, it's not, the millage is to pay off the bond. So much like we did with the roads, the 1.4 that we ended up with is to pay off the road bonds.
This is a reasonably good explanation of what the tax implications are.
There are no measurable increases in taxes. Now, this also assumes that it continues as a toll bridge. And a couple of reasons to do that: if we didn't have the tolls, instead of being 1.6, it was a little over 3. I think 3.1 during the mills that it would take. And this way, at least in my mind, it's whether you live on the south end, the north end. If you live on the south end, you may seldom, if ever, use the pay bridge. But you still go to Kroger, you still go up to the hardware store, you still need an ambulance to get across the bridge. The school buses still have to run. So those are community geared expenses that everybody, every taxpayer will share in that cost. If you live on the north end and you use the bridge, then you pay the usage fee, the toll, because you're using the bridge. But everybody's paying the community geared cost of owning that bridge.
Having,
Assumption that the tolls are gonna stay the same then, Dave,
well,
as what they are
That's,
now?
there was, in our projections, we kept the tolls the same. I believe every 5 years, there was maybe a quarter increase in the toll, much like it has been, the tolls haven't increased exponentially on an annual basis. If you measure from, 1980 when it was a quarter or 35 cents or, up to $3, it's an increase, but.
thank you, David.
And it's also that will also include annual maintenance, just your normal, the normal maintenance that you would take on that, and the cost to operate the bridge, staff, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you very much. I don't know, Derek, before I ask the commissioners, do you have anything else to add?
I think to piggyback on Dave's point, island-wide, the millage, I think that the term last night that was used was, it's an insurance policy.
Sure.
For those that maybe don't use it all the time, it's insurance that you will have control and an assurance that you will be able to get on and off the island reliably. And that, to Dave's point also, the other point he made was, it's the cost to ensure that you also have materials that can get over that supply you and your household. So you might not use it all the time, but at least it's the cost of the insurance of having that, right? That asset to be able to be used. The reduction in millages in 2024 would have been experienced in your summer tax bill. So everybody should have realized that, unless there was something going on with your property where you expanded your home or something got uncapped. But you would have noticed that reduction of that 3 mills in your summer tax bill this year. And that's where that lower section of the graph comes in for 2024. And I think that over the past couple of years, anytime a millage proposal, especially associated with a bond, has been proposed by the township, I think this committee's was really good with focusing in on trying to make it as cost neutral as possible, trying to factor in, how it works with the total millage levy for the township. And I think you can see that on this chart. The ASO work that we're working on right now that's being done at the plant, we had a timeline we had to work on, but we got creative with regards to the financing to make sure that millage levy didn't negatively impact the bottom line. And that's why you see the 0.94 mills coming on in 2025, because that was a delayed levy. That project is ongoing right now in 2024, but we're not levying a millage until 2025 to fund that. And that was to try to keep that millage lower, because we figured that 3 mills was coming off. Fortunately, it came off a year earlier and saved the residents a 3 mill levy, but that's why it was designed that way. So I think we always try to consider that when we're putting forth proposals, because we understand, the residents' priority on that. We want to make sure things remain to be affordable. So that's about all I have to add, but just wanted to add a little bit to what Dave had mentioned.
I have a question and a correction. I did not see the presentation last night. So I guess my questions are, and you alluded to it earlier, but what are all the assumptions behind this net summary? I mean, when we look at the cost here, we talked a little bit about the toll staying the same. I mean, is there going to be a package of information that says, here's really what the assumptions are on, how we're going to manage this thing, because there is a substantial amount of money that has to be allocated to repair the bridge, to bring it up to standard. So what is that assumption set as far as dollars to set aside when can it start, when is it gonna be finished, et cetera? Is that something that's gonna be made available to the residents? Is that something that's gonna be on the website, et cetera?
I think that, to a certain extent, we can address the assumptions that are being made in the base of the pro forma and the financial analysis of what the operations moving forward would look like. What we have to be careful about is addressing, I guess, the current or previous financials of their business operation, of the
Yep.
current owner's operation.
I understand
So-
that. I'm just looking, going forward, I mean,
Right.
we've got a millage that is being asked of residents to adhere to, so.
Right.
The-
We also have to be aware too in what we say, because a lot of the future cost of operations are relative to what the previous cost of operations were. So the connection between the two is there, because we based a lot of future performance based upon past performance of the business entity as it was, or as it is right now. So, we will be able to hopefully provide as much as allows people to be comfortable in their decision, that we've analyzed it to the extent that the assumptions are accurate, and that we can anticipate these costs to be reality when we operate it.
Yeah, we're also, at least Derek and I and other members of the board, are under a non-disclosure agreement with regard to a lot of the financial information
From the current owner.
from the current owner.
Understand.
Okay. I mean, well,
Accept
that's-
that.
That-
I'm looking
that-
forward to saying, we have got a very high-level executive summary here, all right? So when I want to start peeling the onion and seeing what really are the assumptions underneath here, I understand the confidentiality of the previous operation, but, there's a lot of very simplistic issues that go into, the forward planning aspect of this thing. And, one of the questions is who's going to manage all this, right? Is that going to come back to you, Derek, that you're going to pick up this bridge responsibility? Just some of the very basic questions and assumptions that are.
And these are, things we've been working on, and I think the FAQ document as of today was up to probably 4 pages. We're gonna, I think, be able to address the legalities of the operation, the purchase, the legalities of the purchase, the legalities of the ownership, what things were considered, to your point, what operation, what maintenance, what's the managerial design. For example, just to answer that question a little bit, I think that the overall conversation has been leaning towards the development of a bridge authority, which is not dissimilar to many public assets. Mackinac Bridge has a bridge authority. It's a common governmental structure to address the management of assets like this. We've looked at that extensively, especially when we were reviewing, amendments to the with the legislature to allow for a township to operate a toll bridge. We looked at the bridge authority aspect. The unfortunate part about that was, we weren't able to pursue the legislation necessary for a bridge authority establishment, because you have to have specifics about what the bridge authority design is to build into the actual legislative document.
Right.
And we hadn't gotten to that point yet, because we didn't know what exactly that bridge authority needed to look like. I think we have a better idea now. So we will be able to address some of that sort of stuff. Hey, bridge authority is probably the way that we're going to be going with this. We've looked at that. And then how that would function with the township, and then how that would function with whoever's operating it. The initial conversations have been, outsourcing that to a private organization to manage that, which I think the reference has been to how we operate the wastewater treatment plant. Veolia operates that for us. I, along with you, oversee those operations.
Right.
Not too dissimilar to how a bridge authority would.
Right.
Right. So I think we can address a lot of those to give the residents a decent idea of what this would look like, and a level of confidence that, we've considered these things in the proposal that's been put forth to the residents to vote on. So
Derek addressed
Good, thank
last night. I mean, we did use one of the larger engineering firms in the country to do the engineering report for us. We've got bond counsel the financial manager that put the bond package together, that we'd have to have our own general counsel. Who else did we call?
Financial analyst, O'Keefe is the company we had come in to not only review the bridge company's finances, but also then put a pro forma together for how we would operate it and make sure that the financing that is being asked for adequately supports, and the tolls would adequately support operations, capital improvements, so there has been a fair amount of
Reams of paper, and it came out last night that our engineering report, now a lot of it is photographs, but our engineering report was over 1,500 pages long. So, we didn't use the yellow pages to find the engineer. We got one that we knew that we could trust, that has done this kind of work before, on these kinds of bridges before.
Right.
Because not everybody, it's one thing to design a bridge that just goes across a body of water, but there aren't a whole lot that do swing bridges.
Right.
So that factored into our choice of who we use for the engineer. Bond counsel, we use the same that we use for our roads, and they've always done the right thing for us.
And, hopefully that's part of what's in that, the FAQs, which is, executive summaries from each one of those things, right? So if you summarize from the engineering group, right, it's, maybe it's 5 or 6 paragraphs. Here's really overall what they found. All the details, people would probably get lost in a 1,500-page report, right? But I mean, if you
Everybody would get lost in that.
exactly, but if you kind of summarize some of that stuff and kind of present it to people so they can at least grasp it a little bit better, then
Well, and I would also encourage members of the commission and members of the community. If you have specific questions, things that concern you, or things you would like addressed, or information you would like to have, feel free to pass that along to us.
Yeah.
And we will do our best to address those in consideration with the agreements that we have with the bridge company and confidentiality, but and non-disclosure agreements. But we want to try to make sure that everybody has every question that they have answered to the best of our ability. There are going to be certain things that we're not going to be able to address because they might be based upon, hey, what happens if, Mars falls out of the sky and hits the bridge? Well, we can't really address that.
Exactly.
But within reason, we want to try to be able to, address the concerns that residents might have. So feel free to pass those along to myself. I've spoken with a number of people today, trying to gauge what questions are out there. I think that the meeting that we had last night was a good start to gather the public input. We monitor a lot of the social media stuff to see, what questions people have, concerns people have out there. Our intent is to try to, and our job is to make sure people have the information that they need to make an educated decision on this topic. We can't advocate one way or another. We can't say vote for it or don't vote for it. Our responsibility is to provide you with the information so you can make that decision, right? And what's best for you. And that's going to be our goal in all this. And we'll look for your help to make sure that this commission, any commission in the township, or any resident in the township, for what makes, what information you would want to see to make your decision, right? So,
given, I guess the last point that I would have, Derek, is given the activity that's going to be going on to refurbish the bridge, the toll bridge, if this measure passes, do we have any later updates on the Free Bridge as far as what Wayne County is going to do with that one? Is there, a way to kind of
Not have them both closed?
Yes, exactly.
Well, we've had discussions with Wayne County. They do have, or they will be doing some work on that Free Bridge. I think they'll be willing, if this proposal passes the electorate. I don't think we're going to waste any time at all in doing what else we have to do right now to get to get the bridge updated,
Right.
upgraded. It's gonna take more than a week and a half, but.
Well,
we'll
and
get
that's
it
part
in.
of the assumptions, right? How long is it gonna take them to get that bridge updated? And then given what the county
Well,
says they're gonna do and what funding they have available, when will they have the free bridge up?
Right.
And
Well, I
and
think-
how those things are
yeah,
gonna
they've
mesh from a
alluded,
calendar.
they've
Right.
alluded to, and I think they are willing, assuming we show that we're moving along and getting that done on the pay bridge,
Right.
that they will be in a position, because they still have to get some of their funding and
Right.
And I think
they
that's,
will delay that.
In other words,
The pay bridge is gonna get fixed first, and then they can come in and do their thing on the free
they'll
bridge.
coordinate with us.
yeah,
yes.
right. But I think that all has to be within reason because, that bridge needs to be repaired for a
Right.
reason.
Right.
I mean, it's not like you can delay the repairs inevitably, right?
Correct,
So I think to Dave's point, we've had those conversations where within reason, they can work with us to try to make sure things are coordinated properly to make sure that they're, and try our best to make sure there aren't any inconveniences to the residents, that we have solutions to transportation on this island and off this island. So I think to answer your question, yes, that has all been considered. I think we've had in conversations, discussions about timelines for the work on both bridges. We know less about the county because, that's their project, but I think we have a pretty good handle on what the timeline would be for an asset that we would own, that bridge, so.
Thank you.
Okay, since Ray's asked a number of questions, do you have any comments, Phil?
I have a comment and one question. Just a general comment. This township has spent a lot of money in various things for the community. We have open space, we have a horse farm, we have recreational facilities, we have nature trails. We have an awful lot, but that means absolutely nothing if we don't have infrastructure. I mean, it's
Right.
worthless, totally worthless. So people, if anybody's listening, we really need to consider this because without access to this community, none of the rest even matters. And for people that may not think that it does matter, I saw a listing a week or two ago. It was for a house that was for sale, and it was on a social media post, and two people noted that, well, they wouldn't consider it because of bridge access. I mean, so it does affect this community. I mean, access to the community is important. So that's just my general comments. Just one specific question. Do you have an idea of how long the toll bridge would need to be totally shut down in order to update the repairs? I assume in that 1,500 pages, that probably was addressed.
We have had conversations about how long.
I mean, is it
The work
lengthy
would-
like it was for the free bridge, a year and a half, or
Well,
something in that neighborhood, or is that confidential?
You're talking about closure, which would mean
Yeah, have it
for
shut.
construction.
Have it shut down
Right.
to upgrade.
Yes, we have a
it
good
to the
idea for how
standards.
long the proposed construction would take. There's also a lot of work that has to happen around that. There's engineering, there's procurement of specific equipment and materials, there's permitting, there's bidding, there's scheduling, and then you got to fit that all in with construction season. So there's about 5 or 6 different things that have to be considered even before you get to the point of
Well,
construction.
The reason
So-
I asked that, Derek, is last night when when Jim was reading through the proposal, it indicated that if tolls weren't collected, millage would have to go up to service the bonds. So
So,
had different numbers in there. So
So-
I would assume if it's shut down for a lengthy period of time, is that going to up the millage
so
requirement?
revenues associated with a closure and the lack thereof from tolls have been considered.
They've already been considered. Thank you.
Right.
That's my question.
Yep.
Okay, very good. I just want to give Lenny and Les the opportunity. You have any questions or comments?
I do. You have 3 sessions to discuss bridges, right? Well, that's a better forum for me to address my questions.
Les?
I have nothing on the bridge, but I do have something to say.
We're talking about the bridge right now.
That's right.
You're passing that on this?
Nothing on the bridge.
Okay. My final comments on the bridge is, I'm pleased that you were able to bring this analysis, and I wanted to have some time here. I hope that our commission, this gives a little more service to the public if they're listening to our meeting, because the more it's discussed on cable by commissions, the more people will learn, I think. So I appreciate, Dave, you bringing this in, and Derek, you talking about what you can. Now, I want to make a clarification. This commission, Public Service Commission, we've had nothing to do with the toll bridge consideration, the purchase of it, and we have nothing to do with the negotiations that go on between the township manager and the elected officials on the Free Bridge. So those two bridges are handled by the elected Board of Trustees, the township engineer, manager, and attorneys. What this commission has been involved in is the water system, everything on the island, the water system, sanitary sewer system. We've talked a lot tonight about the sewage plant, drains, and the road network on the island. We've been given the responsibility to try to fix the roads because they're all owned by Wayne County. Townships don't own roads, and townships don't own bridges. Now, on the island here, following this discussion, we are grateful that the voters approved a year and a half ago, 2 years ago now, our request for road millage. So we've improved a lot of miles of roads and fixed a lot of and repaired a lot of roads. And you're going to hear about it in a minute. But one of the issues that we've been concerned about is a couple of bridges on the island that involve the Ferry Road Bridge over the canal, the bridge leading to Swan Island, and the bridge leading to Elba Island. Now, those are small potatoes compared to these two bridges, but they're all important. The one to Swan Island and to Elba are lifelines to those residents there. So what we're going to consider next on this agenda tonight is a letter to be sent to Wayne County. And I'm going to read the letter because it explains where we're going with this. So this is an agenda item, and everybody's got the letter. So I'm going to read the letter so everybody understands. Because the residents aren't going to have a chance to see what we're talking about here until I read the letter. Grosse Ile Township Department, this is addressed to several officials at Wayne County. Grosse Ile Township Department of Public Service Commission was established over 50 years ago by ordinance to assist in the administration and general supervision of the infrastructure and public services within Grosse Ile Township. As I mentioned, water, sewer, refuse, wastewater, drains, and roads. Through these legislative responsibilities, this commission, DPS Commission, has been intimately familiar with Wayne County's partnership with the township in providing services and infrastructure to our residents. We would like to acknowledge Wayne County's prior assistance to the island and again request your support. Now, this is a letter to Wayne County. We again request their support through this formal correspondence. First, on behalf of the township, we wish to thank the county for the commitment they made to repair the Wayne County swing bridge that we're talking about earlier, a major lifeline to Grosse Ile and our residents. Also, we appreciate the assistance in the replacement this past year of the Meridian Road Bridge over the Thoroughfare Canal and the bridge along East River Road leading to Meso and Hickory Islands at our south end. As you know, bridges are essential to the life on Grosse Ile, and DPS Commission respectfully requests your assistance in providing information as to when Wayne County will replace bridges on Ferry Road over the Thoroughfare Canal and the bridge over Elba Island Canal to Elba Island. It is the township's understanding that previously the county indicated that both of these bridges would be on target to be replaced by the end of 2025. We also understand that engineering for replacement of these bridges has been completed or is nearly complete. It's recently come to our attention that currently there is no set schedule for these bridges to be replaced and that funding is either unavailable or has been reallocated to other county needs. If there is no funding and no schedule, this is of dire concern to this commission. These bridges remain in need of replacement, continue to deteriorate, and the concern is they will get to a point of closure. I am sure you are aware of the potential safety issue for our community that all of these conditional issues present, especially in the case of the bridge leading to Elba Island, which is the only way on and off the island for some 70 residential households. Our request is that you provide the commission with a reply to when Wayne County intends to proceed bidding these two projects, an estimate of when construction contracts to replace Ferry Road and Elba Island bridges may be executed, and an estimate of when construction may occur. Further, we request that you make available to the Township Manager, Derek Thiel, the latest inspection reports for each bridge. Certainly, we understand funding is always an issue, but we believe replacement of these bridges is essential and critical for the safety of the public. The Elba Island Bridge is 90 years old, built in 1934, and we've been told that the understructure is badly deteriorated. The Ferry Road Bridge was built in 1947. In the end, we've been told the structural framework is severely rusted, and the surface area near the east abutment constantly needs to be filled with asphalt to replace pavement that falls into the canal. Please recall that while townships like Grosse Ile do not own roads or roadway bridges, Grosse Ile residents in 2022 approved a millage for 15 years to fix our county roads. In 2023 and 24, we have resurfaced over 11 miles of the worst primary roads and spent over $1 million repairing concrete on local roads. This, along with some road maintenance dollars we raise each year, should greatly relieve the county from expensive maintenance costs. In essence, the Commission has tried to move forward with our own program of fixing the roads, given the funding challenges we all face. As a township that does not have the resources and responsibility, we must rely on the county to replace unsafe bridges, which should presently be a priority. Please look into the status of the Ferry and Elba Island bridges and schedule for their replacement. We respectfully request your reply by September 10th, DPS Commission meeting, respectfully, and it goes to several people at Wayne County. So that is the letter that I'm asking the Commission to authorize tonight. Any questions?
I have one comment, Bill. I think the letter's done really, really well. The only thing that I would include is in that second paragraph on the last page, you said we resurfaced over 11 miles. I think we ought to also tell how many dollars that we spent there, because it goes hand in hand with the amount of dollars we spent on the concrete local roads. Just to kind of bracket that thing, so, 11 roads, X millions of dollars that we spent, along with the $1 million that we did on concrete.
I have no objection to that. Can you come up with a figure? Okay. Other comments?
Andy Candrivas he's no longer the director of public service for Wayne County.
Okay, effective.
There's a new person, and I don't have her name.
Well, is it effective now already?
Yeah, but I don't think officially the replacement has been announced, but I think to Dave's point, we'll make sure that it's addressed to whoever that new individual is.
There's nothing wrong with sending it to Andy, because he's familiar with Grosse Ile, but
Okay. Phil, any comments?
I'm just curious. I think it's a great letter, and I think it needs to happen. I guess not so much a comment, but a suggestion that if there's any favorable reception to this letter, could you try to initiate discussion on the Swan Bridge and the Park Lane Bridge? I mean, I think to include those in this letter would be too much. I mean, because they did have a plan and funding for the Elba and the Ferry Road Bridge, and I think that's what we want to deal with here specifically. But also, they did have a plan for the Swan Bridge, and who knows what they're talking about with Park Lane. But I think we ought to, at the opportune time, bring that up.
Okay. But it's not part of the letter.
No, I wouldn't put it as part of the letter. I think that would,
Okay, good comment.
worry about what we can, right?
yeah, worry about what we can, but have that in the back of our mind to say, oh, by the way.
Lenny, you're all around the island all the time with the fire department.
Uh-huh. No, I appreciate Mr. Kennedy's comment, but I would almost like to do an intro to that, on that letter. Focus on the two, but remind them there's more to follow. You know, this is just the beginning of these conversations.
Okay.
Something to allude to that, right? Because it's not just two. And if we're going to start that dialogue, let's get the two we can potentially control, but then tee them up right away and put them on notice. There's more to follow.
Well, there's only two more to follow, and we need some sort of a plan to that, to your point.
Yes, yes.
You know, so that they don't think that they just have these two to do, and
I'm
they have nothing
going to
else.
do these two and get them out of my hair.
Exactly.
Well, if that happens, that's a good thing.
It's you're on notice on these two, but we haven't forgot about these
Right.
in the format of your letter. Just my suggestion.
I agree with that.
And Les, have any comments?
I agree with what Lenny's saying. Should think about those other two bridges, Swan Island and Park Lane, especially Park Lane. Park Lane really puts a kibosh into the traffic up that way.
When at 2 o'clock in the morning, when you're driving an ambulance and you're one address off, you got to go all the way around. That impacts those residents more than they probably realize.
And it's time.
And
It's-
not only that, even if there was a house on fire up there and one address off, time is time.
Water supply and new construction homes, you got about 10 minutes. Old construction homes, you got about a half hour. Every minute matters, and if you're off by one with that bridge not being in working condition, it matters.
Well, these are good discussion pieces, but this is coming off of the promise that was made when they announced last fall that there was 20 million for the,
Absolutely understood. Right there with you.
thought we ought to kick this in the rear and see where we can
Yeah.
go with it.
I would, that's directly at them, I appreciate all that, but I wouldn't let them off the hook in the other two. I wouldn't slam them with a wet fish right now, but I would just, some kind of verbiage that says, let's get these underway and we'll continue the discussion with the others.
Hey, you'll do that. You'll verbalize.
You might want, I might ask for your help, just to make sure that we capture the intent. I mean, I'll put the dollar figure in there, but if you want to suggest some verbiage as to how you might want to incorporate that, I can work with you on it.
Okay. Given all that then, with the comments taken tonight, I'm going to put the letter in the form of a resolution for approval to send out to the county. Motion. Is there support?
Second.
I support it.
It's been moved and supported. Any other comments on the letter? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much. No opposition, right? No opposition. Okay.
Oh, but he wants to add a sign in that letter too, a street sign. Street sign.
No, stop. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Keep going, Bill.
Okay. And as chairman, I have one other comment, Derek. So we've got that approved. Over the weekend, I had a resident approach me about the darkness and the fact that Bellevue, that we paved last year, had been striped. And the resident told me that he believes that it would be safer if the striping went back on it. I thought that when we bid that the striping should go on it. And another issue is Ferry Road's going to be striped. The ferry's not been done yet. And personally, I observed, even daytime, over by Water's Edge, that little section that we paved from West River Road, about 500 feet east, it would be safer if that's striped. Now, the striping ends with the old pavement. I think it needs to be striped all the way to West River. So
Where are you referring to?
Bellevue Road,
Okay.
where we paved from West River east towards the driveways at Water's Edge. I observed the commotion there the other day, over the weekend actually, when I was thinking about striping. Ferry Road needs to be striped because the rest of Ferry Road is already striped. Bellevue was striped before it was paved. It needs to be striped The resident asked for it. I believe that was our intent to stripe it to begin with. And that little section that I'm referring to continues the Bellevue striping all the way to West River Road intersection. It would be a lot safer. There was a lot of people going back and forth with golf carts and whatnot at Water's Edge, and cars turning in and out. I think it would be safer to, especially as we're approaching the more darker months, to get that stripe too. So my request is maybe you could report back to us at the next meeting, or maybe it gets striped by then.
Yeah, and some of the updates that John had sent me prior to the meeting, he did mention that PK is going to be in town doing some road striping, so it could potentially be for Ferry, but I'll look into all those.
Got them all then?
Yes.
Please do it. Thank you.
Not that striping is gonna stop golf carts from going all over the place.
Well, it's just a question of safety, Dave. Cars stay
I know,
on their,
I understand.
cars stay on their lane better, especially there where there was all that confusion. Cars were right down the middle of the road, and cars were going on the shoulder to get around them and so forth.
Church striped?
I think church was striped, I think.
I still drive down the middle of the road.
Lenny is
My
church.
point
It's
is,
striped.
Church is striped.
I ignore the stripes, I don't know.
Because you're driving that big fire truck, that's all.
Right down the middle.
Well, anyway, it's a, the Bellevue and Ferry always were striped. They should be striped. That's my opinion.
The county just had the striping machine on the island last week, and they just striped East River, either it was last week or the week before, and they.
South Point, they did.
Yeah,
It was the week before.
week before, a couple weeks ago.
Well, I thought I saw new striping, and you confirmed it. So I think it's an important safety issue. All right, anything on that?
No.
You're going to look into that?
Yep.
That's all I have, so we'll go around the table quickly, see if there's any final comments. Dave?
No,
No.
No, sir.
Lenny?
None here, sir.
Les?
Yes, I've had a few calls at my house pertaining to the road on Dallas. The people knowing that I'm a commissioner, and they want to know what's going on with Dallas, if they're going to do something. And I don't have the answer. And another thing, Phil, when you mentioned all the good stuff that we've done here on the island, you missed one of the most important things of all. The upgrade to our water system that we've done in the past 10, 15 years. That should be number one. The heck with a horse farm and the golf course and all that stuff. You know, 43 years I spent on that water system trying to get it upgraded, but now we got a very good water system on Grosse Ile. Very dependable.
No, that's a good point, Les. And too often we just skip over all the water mains we've built, the 12-inch water mains to along East River and West River, to make sure we have the right pressure, and all the other improvements we've made. So we'll try to keep better track of that when we talk about all the things we do. And we have a lot more to do. If you recall our meeting 2 months ago, we talked about all of the water sewer system, roads, and everything else, what we got going for the future. And Derek had mentioned that a couple of old water main bond issues are going to be retired in the next 2 years. And we can go ahead with some of the other improvements that we talked about but couldn't afford to do.
Yep.
So it'll be back on our agenda as we look to next year, water main improvements. So with that, those are good comments. With that, if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
I support.
All in favor, indicate by saying aye.
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 Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.